All right, hello everyone. You're listening to Unidos Unplugged, the podcast where community culture and wellness take the spotlight. And I'm joined here with today with my director, Mr. Moises Arjona. Say hi, Moses.
Hello, everyone.
And I am also joined by our guest, very special guest, Miss Roxanne Ramirez.
Hello, everybody. I love that.
All
Yeah.
right, so it's we're just gonna be chatting here a little bit. Miss Roxanne will go ahead and introduce herself, tell you guys a little bit about herself and what she does, and then we'll get the ball rolling.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, so if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Miss Roxanne, and what you do.
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, Moses, thank you for opening up this platform. Yes, my name is Roxanne, and I have the great privilege and blessing to be a therapist by profession, but also be completely connected and immersed to the needs of our community when it comes to mental health and mental health awareness. I am the leader of the Healing Center, which is where I get to live my life purpose. And the way that I came into this field, actually, I would have not chosen it if it would have been by choice. I experienced the death of my daughter 21 years ago. I had the opportunity to do a TEDx McAllen last year in October where I shared that. And that, in essence, is what led me into mental health. And now I get to lead the Mental Health Coalition through Judge Richard Cortez. And that, in and of itself, it's a true blessing because it keeps me connected to you all.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. That's really personal and a touching story about how you got involved in the work. And I was going to ask you if you were still part of the coalition. I know there's a lot of changes going on in your life recently and stuff. So you're still part of the coalition. You're still working on that.
Absolutely. So my journey into mental health, it started in the nonprofit sector. I was there for nearly 13 years. And I think that that's one of the biggest blessings, the fact that my heart was rooted in the nonprofit work. Because when I finally did TEDx and every indicator was like, okay, you need to be working with individuals and, witnessing trauma and grief. It was in the profit sector, like for profit, right, through the Healing Center. But there's this big, huge void in my heart as far as everything that I used to do and all the ways in which I used to be connected. So I really think that if it wouldn't have been for that, I wouldn't know the true value of that collectiveness. And I'm really thankful for that.
So I've known you for quite a while. And one of the things that I think I really respect about you and admire is that you're really connected to the community. That is like where you feel at home. And I think that's one of the things that sometimes in the for-profit world, that world looks at things in a different way, and sometimes you lose that connectedness, right? But your work is always connected back to the community. So you do a lot with the grassroots organizations. Can you say a little bit more about that and how you feel when you're working with people in the community?
I think that that's my way of honoring just my lineage, the lineage of where I come from. Just a little bit about, those roots for me. My grandmother, who her name was Severina Ojo de Agua, she was from Rio Bravo. And back then there was a little chapel called Capilla Cristo Rey. And her vision was that one day that would be an actual church. And I remember growing up, and my mom would always be getting after her because she would be out in the streets, collecting, going from house to house, asking for donations for the church. And I remember that my mom would get after her because her shoes would be torn from all of the walking. And she was an itty bitty little Native American lady. She was one of them, right, that would do the braid around their hair or their head. And I remember that my mom would tell her, like, Mami, de lo que le den de la donación, agarre para la pecera, like from what you grab from the donation, like get something for the metro, like let's just say. And I remember that she would say, like, no, what people give, that's for this mission. And my grandmother passed away and she never got to see the chapel or the church that now stands. But every time that I see pictures of that place that now holds so much, I'm reminded of the work that she did through those grassroots efforts. And I think to myself, if my grandmother would have had the opportunity that we have now, how far she would have gone. Yet it was her and God who knew the advocacy that she was doing. And it's me who gets to live it out for her. So I'm constantly thinking, like, come along, Grandma. We're doing this together.
She planted that seed,
Absolutely.
and the fruit has bore a lot of good
Yes.
fruits. And I know you've helped me out with some stuff that we go through sometimes too. So I really appreciate that. And I think one of the things that I really appreciate you about also is how you still keep everything connected spiritually. You round it about in a spiritual way, with whatever, regardless of whatever faith you are, whatever it is. There's always a commonality, and that is our faith and spirituality. So can you say a little bit more about how you connect all that together again?
Yes.
Because mental health is tough. Mental health is not easy. And one of the things are, you can't tell me that I'm wrong, but you can correct me because I'm not the expert here. Because Roxanne is also going through her doctoral program right now. So that's just a quick little shout out to that. But
Thank you.
I think there's a lot of myths that sometimes go, right? So I also tell my mom that I'm depressed. She'll slap me silly and say, "You're not depressed. You're loco." Well, that's what I'm saying, Mom. I need
That's
help.
cultural.
Yeah, that's culture,
Yeah.
right? I need help, Mom. No. You know what I mean? So, but I think when I've spoken to you about my own difficulties or my own challenges, you always go ahead and you dig in, you ask the right questions to not feel like you're probing. But then you tie it back into a spiritual sense, which I think is really key for those of us who are always fighting amongst ourselves with what is right and what is religion and what is this and what is that, right? So I think, can you say a little bit how you manage to do all that? Because it's a skill. Not everybody has it.
Yeah.
I think it is, Moses. And I think that, when clients come to me, and for whatever reason, I have a lot of agnostic and atheist clients. And it's so interesting to me. It completely baffles me because when they walk in, they tell me, all of that spirituality crap, I don't want to hear it. And I'll tell them, I'm curious how you found me. How were you referred? And they're like, Psychology Today. Okay, so in Psychology Today, it says that I'm a Christian therapist. So why me? Why would you have put yourself through this misery, right? And they said, because I want for you to prove to me that all of you all are the same. And that's a big challenge. And I have heard people say something similar to what you just said, as far as it's because we feel you're not judging. And I really do think that regardless of what your belief is, everybody is searching for somebody to witness what they're experiencing. Right. That's at the core of it. We want to be seen, we want to be heard and understood. And if you have somebody that sits in front of you, and possibly you're the only Bible that everybody that they will read. They won't go into a church. They won't place themselves there because of whatever hurt they're carrying. But they will see your actions and they will see, are you willing to unconditionally meet me where I'm at? And when we have the capacity to do that, our actions will speak much louder than the words that we could ever express. So opening up that space and just allowing people to be themselves. It's funny because I have clients who will say, like, I'm not going to curse because, like, I respect you. And I'm like, you just be you. Like, there's no sign here that says you have to leave yourself at the door. Like, no, I want you to come into the room. Yeah. But I respect the fact that they respect me enough to say, like, I want to withhold that. But at the same time, I tell them, you can't respect me more than you're willing to respect you. And if you leave yourself at the door, then you've already disrespected yourself.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to a little bit of the conditioning that we have at work. I always tell everybody, and I'm guilty about this, but, I'm trying to be better and trying to live in the world that we are living in now, because I came in from that same mentality is, you come to work, leave everything outside and the tree outside. And they're like, what tree? You make a tree?
The one that doesn't exist.
Yeah, the one that doesn't exist. And you put all your baggage on it. But when you come to work, and you deal with whatever, right? And when you leave, you pick up all your stuff at the tree. Which is different. So I think we've been conditioned in that same way. So we go in seeking for help in whatever way. We still have that mentality that we're still being a little bit, I can't be myself here completely, right? And they need to have that mind reset, right? Which is what you're doing. So great.
Yeah, because even when we're talking about like integrative or collective work, that doesn't mean you leave parts out. Right. That means you bring all the parts in. Right. When we're talking about humanistically, that's the same thing, right? It's like as a leader, it's not asking people what's a matter because you're going to get all the problems. But if you ask people, hey, what matters to you? and you begin to hear from those team members the things that are at the core of who they are, then you're able to understand what's my team's love language, how can I meet them in that space, and as a result, there's just an increase of 30% productivity simply because we're willing to engage in those parts that, quite honestly, when we are putting that barrier and saying you have to leave things out there, it's because we don't know how to separate ourselves from.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we contain them, because we feel that if we're opened up, we're going to be out of control. Right.
We're vulnerable people. We're very vulnerable people, right?
Yes.
And we don't know, again, I think you mentioned something really quick and really cute about love language, because right away my mind went to another type of love language, right? But what love language we're talking about is like, is it a term of endearment maybe, or affection, or just talking to someone or doing an action for someone? It's not necessarily the other thing that we don't want to say right now, but we all know what we're talking about, right? But
well, you're talking about physical touch.
Physical touch.
So why not talk about it? Because the elephant's in the room and I see it. Because
it's a dirty word.
At the end, why is it dirty? Like, once again, that's cultural.
Yeah, it's a cultural
right?
thing.
That's a cultural thing. Because fact of the matter is that we are all going to be speaking one of the, words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, the gifts, or the acts of service. And when we're able to pinpoint, you know what, for you, quality time is super important. So I know that for this team member, the way that I'm going to get the most value out and give the most value is by just sitting down and, hey, let's just sit and talk for a moment. There's others that words of affirmation are extremely necessary. And if we as a leader are constantly critiquing and humiliating or degrading or making them to feel invisible simply because we're not giving them those words, we're not going to have a very happy camper. And therefore, there's going to be no presence. There's others that physical touch in the workplace is necessary. Like when I got here, I walk in with a disclaimer that says, I'm a hugger.
I'm a hugger, yeah.
Right? And I can see right away the people that are like, nope, not doing that. Not here.
Yeah, not here.
And then there's other people that are like, so am I.
Yeah.
And they come and they hug me.
Right.
But learning that it's not about them speaking your language. And it's not about you speaking your language to them. The most effective leaders are going to be those of us that are able to place ourselves aside so that we can see, how can I be present for them? And as reciprocity, that's going to be something that they're just going to want to lean in closer rather than stay away.
Yeah, and I think, I'm doing a lot better and trying to be a better leader and understanding not just my own stuff, but my partners. And you know how I am. I'm just really cutthroat sometimes, like, and move on. And I'd rather prefer people to be really honest with me and say, you know what, I think you're doing a great job at UCD working on prevention and awareness, but right now it's not for me. I'd rather have that than send me an email and a contract and never get it signed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I respect people just being straight up and forward with me, and that way we can move forward. But I'm learning from my staff, and I'm learning also from working for my partners. And it's a great skill set to have. It really is. And so, yeah.
Leadership is hard.
Leadership is not easy.
Anybody that thinks it's easy, like, you have not walked a day in it, because it is the toughest thing. When you think you're doing it all wrong, it happens to be that you're doing it right. And when you think you're doing it all right, the world comes crashing down on you. Like, wait, what?
Yeah. I remember when I was little, I said I want to be the president and I want to make everything $1. Now I know how everything.
It's not working out for us.
Now I realize what it takes to run an organization. Imagine a whole country, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's one of those things that's really, really hard. I always remember saying, I want to be the boss so I can do this. And then when I became the boss, I was like, oh, no one ever talks about the back of the housework. There's some work that has to happen in the back. And for me, the ugly word is budget. Ugh, gross, disgusting. I get stressed. I get stressed out. Just like my whole back is just like, why do I have to?
That's what we have, like, twitches where they shouldn't be.
and what? People need to know how I spend my money, like all that kind of
know.
stuff, right? But yeah, it's just really hard. It's really crazy. So let's move forward to we have June is Men's Health Awareness Month. What is it, David?
Yeah, June
That's
is
right.
Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and I feel like it ties in perfectly to our conversation that we're having. Right before, actually, maybe selfishly, right before we get into that, since we were on the topic of leadership, I did want to ask you, Miss Roxanne, if you can. I was gonna ask you, like, what does your typical day look like? Because I know being being the head of your profession, there's a lot that entails that. But selfishly, I want you to tell me more about how it was prepping for your TED Talk and kind of what.
Oh yeah, I
I,
missed it.
I feel like selfishly, I want to know, and I feel like our listeners would really benefit from hearing your story and then coming from directly from you, obviously.
Absolutely. That was one of the most, it was kind of like I'm first and foremost not in any way expecting it. And when I was nominated and I was asked to actually submit my idea, right? Because all of this is about an idea. So I submitted my idea based on the work that I'm actively doing. And then I received a phone call from Marco Silva, who's an amazing leader as far as the TEDx community is concerned. And he said, I heard your video, but I think that there's something else to your story. And I want to know what that something else is. So he called me. I was at home. I remember like looking at the number or looking at the name that was coming in, and like I just started to shake, like, oh my God, they're calling me. And it was like, turn off the TV, I can't focus, like, that type of moment. And then, he calls me, and I'm thinking I'm speaking specifically to him. I didn't know that he was sitting at the table with the team around him. So I was myself, and I just spoke. And I talked to him about how, my daughter passed away. And then after that, I was, of course, angry with God. And if you've lost a child, you more than likely can know what that feels like, to be in a space where I was completely heartbroken and thinking to myself, like, wow, you couldn't even trust me with a child. And I had to stay in that season for a while. And then when I ended up at the hospital, finally, like, okay, if pain doesn't leave you, you get up and you leave pain. And my way of leaving was by going to school and actually doing something with it. So I end up at the hospital, and there's, this 5 o'clock time, like 4:50, when you're like, okay, I'm, put on your regular shoes and get out the door. But I was in the oncology department for pediatrics, for children. And I remember running down the stairs, because I used to be a lot more active back then. So I'd take the stairs. And I remember running through the stairs, and then it dawned on me that the kids, they didn't have the luxury of literally leaving at 5 o'clock. So then the next day I came back, and I started to do something that to this day I still do, which is I find somebody that I don't get paid to be a blessing to. And I ask, how can I be present for you today? So I came back to those kids, and I would go room by room, is there anything I could do for you today? And one little girl, she was about 11 years old. I remember she was on her bed, and she was just, sitting there. And I looked at her, and she says, can you talk to my mom? And I was like, sure, of course I can talk to your mom. About what? And she tells me, she goes, it's because I'm ready to go home. And I thought to myself, like, in utilization review and case management, early in the morning, you'd go through the charts, you'd, check to see if there was discharge, hospice, transfer, so that way you can get yourself mentally ready for when you are doing your rounds. And in that moment, I thought to myself, that's weird. I didn't see any discharge paperwork for her. So I tell her, like, are you going, like, you're being discharged? She says, no, I'm ready to go home. And when she told me that, it kind of like dawned on me, like, okay, I get it. I get what you're talking about. She says, the thing is that my mom comes in here and she tells me that she needs me. And I can't leave my mom like that. So then she goes on to tell me that there was angels in the room, and that there was one on each side of her headboard and one at her feet. So there was 3 of them there. And at that moment, I remember, like, to this day, I still feel that presence that was in that room. So I go outside and I look for Mom, and she's sitting there in the lobby. And at that time, I didn't know that every 10 seconds a parent loses a child. I didn't know that. And I didn't know that she was about to be that statistic, similar to how I had been that statistic a couple of years earlier. And I tell her, like, your daughter needs you. I tell her what she needs to do. And she looks at me with a look that could have pierced through me. And she says to me, how dare you ask me to let go of my daughter? Have you ever lost a child? And in that moment, my own pain kind of made sense. Yeah. Although it sucks that I had to have gone through that, that mom would never have been receptive to what I was sharing with her that her daughter needed from her, if it wasn't because I knew what it was like. And when I told her, as a matter of fact, yes, I have. And what I'm telling you today, somebody told me a long time ago. And it's going to be the biggest lie of your life when you tell her you're going to be okay, because as a matter of fact, you'll never be okay. But she needs that from you. So Mom went in there, and the rest is, the rest is history. But when I shared that with Marcos, he tells me, he's like, that's the story we want to hear. And I was like, but that's the story I'm running away from.
Yeah.
Like, I was very happy doing budgets because I didn't have to focus on my own emotions.
Yeah.
Right? It's a whole different world when you're avoiding your pain. You'll distract yourself 1,001 ways. And when he told me that, and then later he tells me, the night that you shared that, the whole team was crying because we were like, that's what we knew was there, but we had to, like, dig for it, right? Because I didn't have it at the surface. Right. So I think that in many ways, that's just the way that we live life. We live life either being like the buffalo, where we learn to lean into the discomfort. The buffalo is one of those animals that they see the storm coming and they don't run away from the storm. They run into it to decrease that discomfort that comes from it. And then there's other of us that it's like, man, the further I can get away from it, the better it is. But then we can't sleep. Mm-hmm. We can't, like, our mental health is completely hijacked as a result.
Yeah.
Right.
And just you talking about that, I usually tell people, I used to work at Valley Baptist Medical Center for many years. And then my last job was actually being a patient advocate. And my whole job was to meet with patients every day and see, how are you doing? How is the hospital doing? Are they treating you well? What can we do for you? And because I had never experienced death in my own family, I could not actually work. So it only lasted a year because I didn't have empathy. I'd never lost someone. I'd never seen so many sick people. I didn't have any of that in my life. So it was really depressing me in a way. And I think right now when you said something about running away from something, I was running away from something. My dad had Parkinson's and he was getting the early signs of dementia. And here I am at the hospital working with other people. I'm like, I want to avoid that at my house. And here I have it here. And now I can go do the job. Mm-hmm. Tell me to go do the job now. I will do the job. Mm-hmm. And I will do it so much better. I will understand what the patient is going through and what the family is going through. Because before I was just looking at the statistic. Check mark, I did it. I had 80 patients. I saw them.
It was all in the mind.
It was all in the mind.
And that's where I reference to people, there's some of us that get so comfortable being in the mind because we don't have to feel.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, I hear you say that and you remind me of my husband, because I remember when he came into my life, and it's kind of like clockwork. Like every year when you've gone through an experience of grief, like emotions just, they flood you, right? You can't run away from them. Your brain just brings them back, even if you think you're not thinking about it. So the first opportunity that he had, because in 2020, my dad passed away, Mom passed away in 2021, and my oldest sister passed away in 2022. July and August back to back. And then 6 months after my sister passed away, when she died, she didn't know that her daughter was pregnant. And her daughter, 6 months later, ended up not being diagnosed with preeclampsia, and she had a stillborn at 39 weeks. We were preparing for her baby shower, and instead we were living with the funeral. So it was 4 years of back to back to back. And I mean, talk about the months of July and August, and it was a flood. So when Mike comes into the picture, he had never lost anybody. I did not know people lived in this world that had never lost. Like, I wanted to throw my shoe at him. Like, okay, you don't know pain. Let me help you to experience what this is like. Yeah. So then he was in that same space where I thought to myself, like, you have no feelings. Yeah. Like, what am I even doing with you, right? You have no emotions. And you could probably relate to that because there literally wasn't a feeling there. But one of the things that I really appreciated about him was that he came back and he said to me, like, after I like ostracized him for a little while, he came back and he said, like, help me to understand this language that to me it's foreign. Yeah. Because it was like I was talking Chinese to somebody and I didn't know, like, they were speaking German. Right. You know, it was completely different. But him giving me that space to be understood made the world of a difference. It does. Because when you don't have that empathy for somebody else's pain, but yet you're willing to say, I don't know it, but help me to understand it, then it doesn't completely invalidate the other person, right? It's and that's exactly what the TED Talk was. It's being fluent in the language of grief, right? Because some people are completely foreign to it.
They are, and I have actually started now telling people when I talk to them and they open up and we're talking about just random stuff we always come back to death and loved ones dealing with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's or other serious illnesses. I go, are you a new family or are you a long living family? And they're like, what do you mean? I go, have you experienced death? And some people will say yes, and some people will tell you no. Mm-hmm. They go, yeah, I have friends that have passed away. I go, no, but have you, your immediate family, your favorite aunt, your favorite uncle, your sister, your niece, your child? They're like, no. I said, okay, well, prepare yourself for some hard times. Mm-hmm. And I think when my dad passed away, I was in a daze for 6 months. There wasn't a time that I went to the funeral home, the cemetery every day. And then I stopped because I was praying the rosary and someone goes, Moses, is that you?
Did you see the burning bush?
And I looked back and it was a friend of mine. I go, what are you doing here scaring people? Moses, is that you? Oh, my grandpa just died and he's over there on that side of the funeral cemetery. And I'm like, but don't be coming up at people when they're praying and, like, Moses, is that you? And that's the last time I went at night.
I was about to say, is that the last time you slept?
Yeah.
At that point, you're like, am I delusional?
Like, what's going on? Yeah, I was there yesterday, and it's just funny observation. I went there. So my dad raised us growing up. So we celebrate Father's Day and Mother's Day for my dad. We love our mom. We still visit our mom, and we celebrate mom too. But my dad, was divorced, and my dad raised us all. So he was mom and dad for us. For mom, the cemetery estaba llena de gente. I mean, músicos y todo. For dad, you looked around and maybe you saw 20 people.
Wow.
And I was like, dad doesn't get the same respect and honors that mom does. Mm. And I can understand why too, right? Dad is always working. We don't spend enough time with dad and stuff. But in our case, it was a little bit different. He was working and he always spent time with us and stuff. So yeah, it's just a quick observation.
Wow.
But anyway, we diverted so much.
But I want to add something to that because you mentioned Alzheimer's, right? And dementia. And with the clients that I have that are in that space, it's like you grieve twice. Because you grieve the dad that you had and you knew. And then when Alzheimer's or dementia kick in, you begin to now go into caretaking mode. You have the child version of that person, which is a version that you have to kind of like acclimate yourself to. And then when that one dies, it's like you've already mourned way before. So it's a very, very complex grief. Yeah. Because you do grieve twice. at least from what I've been able to witness and hear from my clients.
You are absolutely right. And the caregiver, the going from the son role to the caregiver role is super hard. You're seeing your loved one deteriorate. That's even
Yes.
harder, like you're saying. So they bring just so many floods of emotions, and you don't know how to deal with stuff. And I think the hardest part for me was just, well, my dad was never a combative man, but when he became older, he wanted to fight everybody. He was a
Yes.
fighter.
It was aggressive.
Yeah, he was really aggressive, and it was just the stories I could tell you. But I think when I pray at night and I say, God, I wish my dad would be back alive, and I have to be very specific.
Which
My
version?
dad that was in the
Your
80s,
hero.
strong, and he was, he wanted to go places, and he could, things, right? Don't bring him back at the last year he was
Yes.
bedbound and didn't know nothing, right? So, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Okay, so we've diverted so much, and we were gonna go to men's health.
love it.
Well, that kind of
That's
goes
okay.
into it, though.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Right?
segues
Okay.
perfectly. So again, Miss Roxanne, if again we're already kind of on that topic, if you want to just take the reins, and maybe give us some insight as to how men that are struggling opening up, or just with something, how can they kind of, it's something very prevalent in our culture, which I'm assuming you'll touch on, but how can they kind of get out of that shell and be comfortable with, hey, I need to go to therapy, I need to talk, I need to talk to someone about this, and just kind of being okay with bearing their feelings out.
Absolutely. And for the men out there that perhaps may be listening to this, I really want to reiterate the whole cultural concept. And it's not only the cultural concept, but I also think it's a lot of that spiritual concept too, as far as what is expected from a man. So typically what I have seen, and now this is not in every case, but this is in a majority of the cases, men go into relationships with this expectation that they need to be the provider and the protector, right? So men need to provide and protect, and that protection also, it's infiltrated into making sure that I'm not burdening people with my emotions. So, for example, I have a lot of clients that are law enforcement, Border Patrol, and we know the rates of suicide with Border Patrol agents. It really is heartbreaking. Because one of the things that I hear from them, and I have the opportunity to hear from both him and her, it's my wife thinks that I'm keeping things from her, that I don't trust her, because I won't share with her whatever it is that I'm facing out there on the field. But the reality is that I'm protecting her from the things that I feel could completely crush her if she knew what I was seeing, what I'm hearing out here on the field. The wife tells me it's because he's not present, he doesn't want to tell me, he doesn't trust me, he doesn't this. And they begin to develop a lot of resentment towards them, even paranoia, by thinking, what's because who is he talking to? And what is he not sharing with me? And it begins to create a lot of division. But that division comes greatly because they feel that they need to protect the wife. They need to protect the family, but it leaves them completely unprotected. So when they finally come into the counseling room, it's okay. How can you just come in here and be in a space where, once again, there's no judgment, there's no right, wrong, there's just you do the best you can with where you are at the moment, and begin to extend some grace and compassion for yourself, because you've been carrying all of this weight without allowing anybody to help you to carry that cross. And when they finally have that and they begin to incorporate and integrate the wife, as far as, you know what, okay, she was able to kind of pinpoint it as far as, yes, I want to protect you, but that doesn't mean that I don't trust you. How can they begin to slowly start to share the things that maybe are not so burdensome emotionally for the wife or for the children, right? Because here is where, as far as men's health is concerned, men tend to have higher risk or high risk behaviors, right? Alcohol, vaping, substance, gambling, pornography. Pornography is actually one of those that is really, really, really high on the spectrum, because that's one of those spaces where I mentioned the wife and the husband begin to disconnect themselves, but the male still has needs, physical needs. And the way that they can make those needs without them feeling like, okay, I'm going to go and cheat on my wife, is oftentimes by going into a space where they can still meet that physical need, but not at the expense of having to engage with somebody else. So they'll go into that space, but once again, that begins to create more division. So in the aspect of men's health, they will often have more anger, irritability, frustration, explosiveness, and I'll say to them, the fact that you're angry simply tells me that you've been dealing with sadness for a very long time. You contain to keep people safe, and then all of a sudden you explode. And the same people that you wanted to keep safe are now the ones that you're causing destruction over. So then guilt comes in, shame comes in, and here we go back into this vicious cycle of how can I just numb myself out so that I don't do that again. And it becomes this revolving cycle where unless they have that space to just be able to put it out there, they won't find peace within themselves. And that's where those intrusive thoughts are going to kick in. They're better off without me. Nobody needs to hear this. And unfortunately, those that actually complete suicide, it's at an alarming rate.
Which is scary. It
is scary, and it's devastating for us as community, because that one death, it affects systems, right? And one way or another, healthcare, mental health, school system for those kiddos, it's going to affect us all in one way or another, right? So being able to just normalize it, to validate it, once they feel like, okay, you know what? That doesn't mean I'm crazy. That means I'm rather normal.
Right.
It's because you're normal that you're going through all of these things, right? So anger is one of those elements where even culturally, once again, go back to a funeral home. You find somebody that's sad, everybody wants to gravitate towards that person. How can I be there for you? How can I support you? What can I do for you? But somebody walks into that funeral home and they're pissed off because their loved one died, because of family, and they start showing up in anger. And the first thing that culturally we want to do is, hey, get out of here. Nobody needs that. Yeah. Nobody needs to hear what you're like. So we have even made a way to place this acceptance as far as, okay, you can show up depressed and you'll be accepted, but you show up angry and you're going to be thrown out the door. But here we have two people that are hurting. Right. One is internalizing and the other one is externalizing.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. So I have family members I think you use great law enforcement examples who were at Iraq and all that kind of stuff. And when they came back, it was hard. It was really, really hard. And I think the most honest thing my brother-in-law could have told me, because I had two brother-in-laws that were over there, were you don't want to know what we saw. Mm-hmm. And they're probably absolutely right, because I know that I'm not military. Mm-hmm. So I probably would have been, I'm going to joke about it, but Full Metal Jacket, probably would have been the guy that got socked with. With
the bars of soap.
With the bars of soap when they're when it's nighttime. I probably would have been that guy, and I would have been out, right? I would have gone AWOL right away. I know. I confess it. I tell everybody.
Moses and his flight mechanisms.
Yeah. I will be that guy. But I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes we want to help, but we're actually protecting people from the struggles of reality and what happened. And I think for me, just talking for mental health in general and everything else, we encounter so many people in the work that we do talking about their stories, and I'm like, why? You should be retired. Why are you still working? Well, I never got screened for cancer or anything. I never went to the doctor's. Never went to a doctor appointment because I had to provide for my family. I retired. I went to the doctor, and I have cancer. Yeah. And now I had to go back into the workforce to be able to get insurance to cover for the treatments. And I think it's really, really sad. And I think for men, one of the things we need to focus on is go ahead and focus on our health. If you work for an organization or you don't work for an organization that provides you health insurance, go get your screenings done. Go get all your screenings done, mental, whatever. Prostate cancer is really something that I advocate a lot for. Is that someone that's going through an enlarged prostate and medication and all that kind of stuff, I always advocate for that for men. And then, of course, for colon cancer. It's hitting a lot of younger people now, under the age of... I saw someone that I was following, someone 30 years old with colon cancer, and the whole deal going on to that. So the mental stress that goes through a family, thinking my breadwinner has now cancer, how do I manage to bring up the bills and pay the house and take care of the family? It's going to be mentally struggling on someone. So, yeah, I think we need to all advocate for all types of screenings and not to be ashamed. And look for that one person who can encourage you to go ahead and say, hey, you know what? I got you. I'm going to make fun of you because our culture is going to bully you anyway. If they come ask for me, they come talk to me.
Let me prepare you.
Yeah, if you're going to come talk to me, I'm going to bully you first and then... and then
okay, let's talk about this. Moses.
Break down to build up.
Yeah, break down to build up. Let's sandwich you up. It's the sandwich method.
Disclaimer, this is Moses' beliefs. This is not mine.
This is not a proper mechanism or healing technique, but this is a personal opinion on how I would address this situation. But, I think sometimes we just have to be honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
And, of course, guys always have guy code, and girls have girl code and stuff, and how we always look at that, right? But I think we don't always sometimes do a good job of checking in on each other as guys, right? We want to have that one. I can do it and stuff. And
I don't need anybody.
Yeah. Yo see, I need help. I have a cold. I need someone to come feed me. And I like all the attention. I'm needy. I'm not going to say no. I had it'll be a year that I had bilateral hernia repair, groin hernia repair, right? So, to this, I'm not picking anything up, and the staff already knows. Everybody knows. Moses can't pick anything up. I can't pick it. I'm not gonna hurt myself again. It was painful. I'm still recovering.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
any surgeries.
So you have to go ahead and say, you know what, I need help. Yeah, I might look strong, and I might be a guy too, but no, I need help. You know what I mean? So
yes, and perhaps this is where we can just shift the paradigm that we have, seen things through. Because if you are a male and your greatest needs for influence over your family is that I want to provide and protect, let's redefine what provision and protection looks like. Because if I want to really protect, I need to protect myself first. And if the way that I need to protect myself first in order for my family to be okay for the long haul is that I'm going to go ahead and do these things to ensure I'm going to be able to do that, then this is what it looks like. And as a matter of fact, it kind of brings up a story back when I used to work at State Farm, and I was really good at selling life insurance because I had a story about death, right? Yeah. So I remember that there was this couple, and, I had already previously talked to the wife about, getting health, life insurance for the husband and whatnot. And he walks in there one day, and he's just he's telling me off, right? And he's pissed off because I want to convince her to put life insurance on him so that way, if he dies, right? She's wishing death on me because of what you told her. I'm like, that's not even what I said, but that's besides the point. So then he tells her, tú nomás quieres que me muera para que te vayas con el Sancho. And, he starts telling her all these things, right? So then I look at him and I said, you know what, sir? And, for those that speak Spanish, I'm going to say it in Spanish because the melodrama of the novela just sounds so much better. So then I tell him, ¿sabe qué, sir? Tiene usted toda la razón. El hecho de que usted la vaya a dejar desprotegida va a significar que se va a tener que buscar ese Sancho. Sí. And he looks at me. So what I told him, for those of you that don't know Spanish, I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. The fact that you would leave her unprotected means that she's going to have to look for someone because she's not she's a homemaker, right? Yeah. So she's going to need to look for somebody because you didn't do the job of protecting her. Yeah. And he looks at me and he says a bad word and he goes, ¿Dónde? Beep. Firmo.
Oh shit, what was that?
That's exactly what he told me.
Wow.
Because of that.
Yeah.
Right.
When he realized that if he wants to make sure that he remains that central figure in her life, at least, for a good while, it meant that protection and provision was going to have to come in a way that he was not expecting it to come.
Wow.
Needless to say, you sold.
Yes, we did.
I'm at the quarter for the month.
You sold on the policy.
I reeled him in. No, but it's really true. You know, we joke about these things, and you know, I'm a big proponent of prepaid funeral. I'm a proponent for life
Yes.
insurance. I'm a proponent for all that. The one thing we don't want to do is leave our family struggling, and we,
Right.
you know, the worst thing I've seen is I call it the guilt funeral. So you get all the flowers, the biggest, most expensive casket. For me, y'all can hire wailers. I need a lot of wailers at my funeral. Professional wailers, por favor.
With signs.
Yeah.
Like in Shrek.
Sí.
Everybody claps.
Yeah.
Everybody cries.
Yeah. And for the moment you walk into the funeral, que se estén desmayando. That's my ideal vision. And of course I might be dead, but but yeah. I mean, I think we wait for the last minute. We think something's never gonna happen, and we don't leave our family prepared.
Yeah.
We don't leave our family prepared. My dad, I forced him to get the prepaid. Best decision he could have ever done by actually going through it. I recently did my prepaid right before COVID, and I'm a big advocate for that.
Absolutely.
And your family is dealing with your illness, your loss, and your this, and they don't make decisions in the right way sometimes. And then you stay in debt or something, right? And
And then they stay in the shock and denial and anger for a prolonged period of time simply because they didn't have the opportunity to grieve properly because they had to do things that they, that they didn't want to be doing.
Right.
They wanted to be grieving, but instead they're here fighting for making sure that there's a proper burial.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just kick in because I think this is really important that we're talking. And you know what? We might have to cut this proportion in a couple of cuts,
That's
right?
fine,
But
that's
it's
fine.
really the conversation is really good. But for those of us, if you don't know, I'm on medication. I'm on some I call it psychotics. I'm on psychotics, but we
No, you're on antipsychotic.
antipsychotics. I'm on antipsychotics. Thanks for the clarification. So I think when my dad passed away, I was numb. I never cried.
Right.
So here at the office, we started taking methylene blue.
Okay.
So if you're on antipsychotics, you're not supposed to take it. Well, I went ahead and took it anyway, I think for 3 weeks. Roxanne, you're laughing already because you probably already know what's happening, right?
I see the train coming.
Oh, yeah, the train hit at 3 in the morning. And I finally, after 13 years, was able to grieve my dad. It got me so scared that I couldn't stop crying like for 3 hours. And I was like, who do I call at 3 in the morning that I'm like having a complete meltdown? And it's one of those things where we just don't realize what we're doing sometimes.
Yeah.
We just don't realize. But so needless to say, I stopped taking that little pill, that little blue pill, because it was doing good. I was thinking better, but it piled up my serotonin levels or whatever, and then
At least that's needed.
I needed to cry. Oh my God. It opened up. How can I say? I made some life changes in my life that probably I would not have done, but I had like a little breakthrough. It gave
Yeah.
me a breakthrough, and now I see my life a lot more clearer. But again, I was still grieving 13 years for my dad because I just never cried.
And that's why I say that time does not heal wounds. Anybody that's living with the philosophy that time heals wounds, you're only fooling yourself. Because the concept is that you have to feel in order to heal.
Yes.
And if you are not feeling, there's just no way. All of that is subconscious stuff that comes and visits you in your moments of stillness. That's why so many of us that are in this distraction flight mode, when we have vacation, what happens? Our body shuts down. Right? Because we are going to want to avoid feeling the pain of the loss, the pain of the trauma. So instead, we're now focused on the fact that my body shut down and we have another distraction, right? Or when you're in your sleep and at 2, 3 in the morning, this pain comes and visits you and now you're fighting your way through your sleep because you need to have something to be upset about.
Right.
So the courage or the coraje that a lot of the times it's like when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, when you can't blame anybody else. And this, one of those things that I say to my clients all the time. If you're coming to me to hear what you want to be spoken, then you're in the wrong place. Because my job is not to be and say to you the things that you want to hear. That's what we have friends for. My job is to tell you the things that you're missing out on that are constantly being that wall that you go and hit over and over and over again. And here in that space, it's giving yourself permission to truly feel what you need to feel in order to be able to break from that compulsive lie that you believe to be true, right?
Right.
Oh, it's not hurting me.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have any problems. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
How's that working out?
No,
for you?
yeah, exactly. And I think you open up to another whole deal because I've done a lot of growth in the last several years.
I love your excitement.
You love my excitement, yeah. Because I think we're always in a cycle of chaos that we don't know what happiness is.
Mm-hmm.
And then when there's no chaos and you're like, hey, something's wrong.
But
I'm
you
actually
create
happy.
it.
And then you go create it.
Yes.
And you thrive on that
Yes.
sometimes. And people get tired. People just leave you and stuff, right? So I think that's something that we need to maybe come back and talk about a little bit is how do we actually enjoy our life because things are going really well now. And we got rid of the chaos. We've put a stop to all that. And it's like I'll rephrase it back to someone in diabetes. Someone says, you know, my glucose was at 800, my A1C was at 13. I took the medication, I didn't feel good, so I stopped it. So the body's healing itself. This is what normal feels
Yes.
like.
And it
Yes.
doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And we don't.
Because
know.
they're
And
not
we don't
used
like
to
it. We don't know how to do.
We want to revert back to.
Yeah.
That's what I called. I tell my clients is we want to go back to Egypt.
Yeah.
We want to go back to a space of bondage and strongholds and slavery because that's how we know how to live. And as a matter of fact, they did a Harvard study where they were exploring what are some of the main fears that people have. Do you know what one of those fears is?
Mm-mm.
One of the greatest fears that us humans have is a fear of experiencing happiness.
Oh.
At the moment when we begin to experience happiness, there's a mental break that goes on in our brains, literally. And it literally starts to tell us, the other shoe's about to drop.
Right.
Something bad's
Right,
going to happen.
exactly.
And now our reticular activated system, which is a filter with which we see life through, it's literally preparing us for what that bad thing is going to happen. So then when it happens, we say, I knew it.
Yeah.
It's like being in a relationship. You're in a relationship with somebody that's actually healthy, is not mistreating you, is not doing all these things. And in your mind, no, it's just a matter of time before he cheats on me, before he does. We have these catastrophic thoughts that keep us from actually being able to simply receive what a good quality of life is.
Yeah, I completely agree with that statement.
Awesome. This has been a great conversation. As we're winding down, Miss Roxanne, you deal with so much in your profession, and you help so many people. How do you take care of yourself?
Ooh.
Any fun? It could be wellness tips or just little hacks that you've implemented that you just incorporate into your daily life.
Absolutely. That's such a good question because you got to take care of yourself before you take care of everybody else. So my taking care of myself, it's early in the day. Like I get up very early in the day, and before anybody else is up, I'm already doing something to like literally fill my soul. So for me, it's, going into prayer early in the morning, listening to a podcast, whether it be Mel Robbins. You name it. I have different themes, right? If I'm on the leadership track, I'll listen to Craig Rochelle. It just depends on where I'm at. And then after that, I go into creating a space like out in my garden. I love to listen to birds. If anybody knows me, you know that I love nature because nature grounds me. And after that, I'll make myself a good coffee, enjoy a slow start to the morning, fill myself with the first appointment for the day. So my first appointment for the day is at 8 o'clock, and that's an appointment with myself. It's already scheduled. That's my time because I'll take other meetings with priority. And my thought is, if I take other people seriously, then I have to take myself seriously too. So I have to be on that calendar. Right. And that time it's, how does my day look? What is it that I need to accomplish for today? What are those 3 priorities? And then at the end of the day, I'll finish with myself as well. That way I can put myself in check. Did I do what I needed to do for today? And if I didn't, it's not about, just beating myself up for it. No, it's, okay, then that's something that we can begin tomorrow with. So that's kind of the way that my days work. I'm a creature of habit, so for me this works really well.
Right.
And I just encourage people to put yourself first on your line, on your list, because nobody's going to take you seriously if you don't take yourself seriously.
Awesome.
Great tip.
Yeah, really great tips. You got anything else for us, Moses, before I wrap it up?
No, just thank you for joining us today. I love conversating with you. You always make me feel at peace. And thanks for the free therapy lesson.
I'll send you the invoice later.
No, so this was awesome. Miss Roxanne, I'll give you the floor. If there's anything you'd like to highlight, where can people find you or follow you or anything like that before we close it out?
Absolutely. So you can find us at the Healing Center, or if you'd just like to make contact with me, my name is Roxanne Ramirez Cisneros, and I just look forward to serving. Serving is at the core of who I am, and if there's any way that I can do to add value to you, know that that's my presence here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. On that note, thank you so much for joining us today, everyone, and we hope you enjoyed this segment of Unidos Unplugged. Thank you again.
Yay.
Where did the clapping go?